clear, right? So it's men
Yeah.
and women, but I would love for them to follow your page and follow the work that you do.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so all right, awesome. So let's get started. We're going to be learning about how mother wounds work through generations of
Yeah.
women and how they impact children.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about some of the signs and some of the ways that we can work on this wound. And so let's get started. Abby is a licensed social worker,
Mhm.
and she is going to get started by explaining what a mother wound is.
Yeah. So mother wounding is what wounding that comes from our maternal figure. I think that our maternal figures are typically our caregiver who we seek emotional safety and refuge from. When there's a break in some of that emotional safety, that's when we see some of the mother wounding present. Um, some of these look like us becoming aware that we need to shrink, be small, keep the peace, people please. That's kind of how some of these mother wounding situations will present in daughters or sons. And yeah, I think that, when we talk about the mother wound and why they why they come up in generations, right? It is so often passed down from one generation to another. And you can kind of look back and see, did my mother have a great relationship with her mother? Did her mother have a great relationship with her mother? Right. And it's so often this is a pattern of behaviors. And when we kind of have like the mask come off, the unveiling of, hey, I think maybe I had a really great mom who was well meaning and well intentioned, but I still feel like I fit into some of this category of some of this mother wounding. What does that mean? And for others, there's, maybe some more big T traumas that do come from your relationship with your mother. So whether it's physical abuse, emotional neglect, whether, no matter where kind of you feel like you fit in, we can have some of this wounding and see it presenting in our adult life and some of our other relationships, and maybe even in the ways that we're parenting our children. And now, okay, I'm noticing some of these things coming up. How can I address them? How can I make sure that I'm not passing on some of these same behaviors? I think in my family, I talk very openly on my page about um, I have no contact with my mother. I'm healing my own mother wound. So living with estrangement, raising four children while navigating estrangement and healing the mother wound, it's a lot. And so, how can I make sure that I'm not passing on some of these things to my children and particularly my daughters, right? And what does it mean when, some of these triggering things kind of come up, and I think that the more that we get curious about what our wounding is, I think for so many of us that identify with the mother wound, we're going to identify with different pieces of the mother wound. Some might be, some of this abandonment wounding. Some of it might be, the need to people please, or my worth is tied to productivity. A lot of us have different kinds of wounding when we talk about the mother wound, but getting really curious about what yours is, how it has presented, some of the things that maybe you've picked up along the way to survive in your family of origin, right? The people pleasing, me, I'm a over functioner, shrinking yourself and being smaller, figuring out, what is my thing that I've picked up to adapt to this environment that I came from, right? So I'm like raising my hand on the over functioning. I know I do it. And then I've like bred this life that just like enables over functioning. I've got four kids. I am an entrepreneur. I have my own business, right? So it's just like
Yeah.
you are going to be over functioning the rest of your life. But how can I kind of balance that, right? When I know that that's some of my wounding is attaching my worth to productivity, over functioning so that I don't have to feel, how am I going to make sure that while I've built this life that really enables these things, how am I going to make sure that I'm balancing it, right? And so for me, that's really scheduling in times for self-care. That's making sure that I'm hitting the yoga studio and I'm on my mat and I'm practicing mindfulness. That means, I'm having some of these daily check-ins, weekly check-ins, whatever, with myself of, okay, where are we at? Is our feet touching the earth? Are we, living where we need to be, or are we living in our, everything outside of us, and attaching our worth to all these things that are external? Or am I really valuing the things that I value? Um, and so I think that, that's like a big part, is getting really curious about what your wounding is, how we can navigate unraveling some of the wounding and moving forward with some of our things. Over functioning for me and for you, it might be people pleasing, it might be um, perfectionism, it might be lots of different things that a lot of us are carrying. They're not necessarily bad things, right? They've helped us to survive. They help us in certain situations, relationships. I don't think that we need to necessarily divorce all of our maybe unhelpful coping skills, or the ways or survival tools. I don't know that we need to necessarily divorce them, but we definitely need to figure out a way to balance them and to figure out a way to make sure that we're coming home to ourselves and honoring ourselves and our needs, our values, our priorities. When we come from some of these dysfunctional family systems where maybe you have the mother wound or the father wound, we get really wrapped up in a lot of external things that aren't really our priorities. You know, we're prioritizing keeping the peace for our family of origin above our own, and we self abandon a lot. And it's not your fault that you were put in those situations. It's not your fault that you are healing some of these woundings. Those woundings were not your fault. Um, and you should have never been put in some of these situations, but it is our responsibility to heal, and it is our responsibility to make sure that we're doing different in the families that we're creating.
Yeah, and so you touch on a couple of things
Yeah.
that are really important to kind of
Yeah.
bring across or make clear. So a lot of mothers are,
Mhm.
like you said, these things are
Yeah.
coping mechanisms that are created out of
Yeah.
survival, and a lot of the times they're passed along simply because they're not
Right.
aware. so
Right. Right.
so they're
Right.
struggling and they're in it, like they
Right.
are surviving, and
Right.
so that makes it very difficult and basically for a child going through it, but for a parent, it doesn't matter if it's an adult child and
Right.
parent trying to work it out,
Right.
etc. But essentially, how much of it is maybe innocent,
Hmm.
or trying to give compassion to your parent
Hmm.
because that was their circumstances,
Right.
and they did the best
Right.
they could, even with
Right.
passing along what they did, right?
Right. Right. So I think that the goal, or I don't even know what the word is never the expectation. The expectation is never that you're going to be a perfect parent. There's not a single perfect parent on the whole face of this earth. Your favorite parenting guru that you're following here on Instagram, the world's best researcher in the parenting realm, like no matter who you're talking to, there's no such thing as a perfect parent.
Yeah.
And I don't think that there's going to be such a thing as a child that comes out of their childhood completely unwounded. You can have the most well-intentioned parent and still you're going to miss a mark somewhere. I have 4 kids. They could not be more different. So I'm parenting 4 very different personalities, 4 very different kids that need different things from me and their father. They're going to need different ways for connection. They're going to need different ways for some redirection, or, some discipline, right? And they're all going to need different things. I'm not going to wake up on every single day and be this great parent every single time. and neither are you, right? All of us are just messy humans trying the best that we can. So I want to make that very clear that the expectation is never that you are the perfect parent that does it great all the time. And there are so many well-intentioned parents out there that have had a really negative impact on their now adult child. Now they're coming into adulthood, they're noticing some of their wounding, they're noticing how it's impacting their adult life, maybe some of their adult relationships, the way that their parent or the way that they're parenting their children. And they're like, man, I really need to take some inventory. I need to unlearn some things. I need to break some cycles. I need to do some things differently. And that's great. Um, and I think that, there's probably more than these two groups, but there's like kind of two groups of parents. There's the parents who are going to get on board and you're going to come to them and say, hey, mom and dad, I had a great childhood. I think that you had really great intentions. I'm noticing that some of the impacts of some of your behaviors did negatively impact me. And now here's the work that I'm doing. I'm in therapy, I'm learning some things. I'm doing some things differently with my kids, and I hope that you can get on board with the changes that I'm making. And there's parents who are going to hear you when you say some of those things, and they're going to come on board and they're going to support you. They're going to take accountability. They're going to apologize. I can really see how me doing this behavior would impact you in that way. I did not have all the resources and education and everything at our fingertips like our generation does. I didn't have that. And, I was just trying the best that I could. I was doing the best that I could, right? But I still understand that I missed the mark here. And I'm really sorry that that was your experience. How can I support you in your healing journey now?
Yeah.
You're going to say
So,
something.
because you're at an important
Yeah.
part, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of adult
Mhm.
children having this type of
Yeah.
conversation or wanting to have
Yeah.
this conversation, and it
No.
doesn't go the way they want,
And
or
same.
it just
Yep.
it turns out negatively,
Yeah.
right? So what would you recommend? Maybe a way to start. So my
Mhm.
recommendation, right, if you were
Yeah.
having this conversation, is to be completely compassionate
Yeah.
first, to lead
Yeah.
with compassion and
Yeah. Yeah.
understanding
Yeah.
and really talk about the circumstances that the parent was in
Right.
that created their situation or the wounding in the first place, and bring compassion and understanding of that
Yeah.
first,
Right.
and then start with how it's impacted you and what you're doing. But
Hmm.
have you found success in that? What would you recommend? Did I miss anything there?
No, no, and I love that. I definitely think that, compassion breeds connection, right? When we come at somebody really hostile and like, you did this and you did that to me, and this is how you messed me up,
Yeah.
right? Your parents are absolutely gonna go on the defense immediately. We're all just humans, of course. So definitely I love like the compassion first. Trying to just invite them into the conversation, invite them into what you're learning, what you're doing, and I want you to be a part of this. I want a better relationship with you. Maybe the thing is, for me, my mom's behavior that kind of led to our estrangement is the silent treatment. And so for me coming to her and saying, hey, I can't be in a relationship where the silent treatment is existing. This is the way it's impacting me and my children now. And I want a better relationship with you. I think that that's probably what we both want is a good, close relationship. I would hope, that that's what both parties want, your parent and their child want a close relationship. So absolutely. I think that the breakdown is it's not always successful, right? So you're going to kind of have like these two buckets of different kinds of parents. You're going to have the parent that can take accountability, that can join you on your healing journey, that wants to do the therapy with you, that wants to do the work, and isn't afraid to admit harm, right? And then you're going to have kind of the other side where I'm noticing a lot of adult children ending in estrangement because there's a breakdown, there's the inability to have the conversation. And I think it's shame, you know, And I don't think it needs to be there. It just is. I don't know like how you kind of get around this. I love, leading with compassion. I think that still there's a lot of shame that comes up when you're saying, hey, the ways in which I was parenting negatively impacted me. Here's the work I'm doing in adulthood now. Here's the way I'm changing things for my family. And there's just a lot of shame. And so it's like the protector parts come up. And if you're not familiar with IFS, internal family systems, I really encourage all of you to go dig into some of that. But I think that there's some protector parts that come up that are just like, we cannot admit fault. We cannot see this. I cannot acknowledge this. There's some part that's too painful for our parents to have those conversations. And then, it's I'm the parent, do as I say, I know more than you,
So
and you kind of get some of those things going on.
yeah, so
Yeah.
the next
Mhm.
question is essentially how to handle a parent that is in that exact
Yeah.
situation. So
Yeah.
so I help support
Yeah.
somebody in a situation
Yeah.
with a mother wound where
Hmm.
the mother was very
Yeah.
controlling of what she expected the child to do
Yeah.
for their career,
Right.
what they needed to dress like, what friends, and the whole
Hmm.
9 yards.
Hmm.
And they're adults now, and there is no change, and there is
Yeah.
no
Right.
humbleness or
Right.
agreement of even when you explain to them the impact, right?
Right.
And this person now has issues taking initiative and
Hmm.
following through and even knowing what they want to do with their life because
Right.
they were never given the opportunity to take the lead or create interests, right?
Yeah.
So how do you deal with, is it just estrangement? Like this person is not talking to their parent, I
Yeah.
mean their mother.
Yeah.
So how would you recommend a person deal with that if
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah. So I think
their
like
situation
step
is?
one is boundaries.